of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero. Chapter 48. Love is thicker than blood. God! As Mondays went, this one was... Hey, is everything alright? Troubling. First of all, Sir Knight, I had not replied to his text. He'd read the message, though, which was incredibly unusual for the officious hero, and worrying besides. He checked his CCTV cameras, and by the odd flicker across the recordings he reviewed, he was certain that they'd been accessed and copied as well. Then All Might hadn't replied to the private messages he'd sent him either. He'd been concerned, clearly more than he should have been, and now he felt like a nuisance, and had sent just a few lines, all read, inquiring after him. He'd even tried to joke about the lemonade not being drank, but now since humor wasn't his forte, he was worried that he might have offended the pro or something. His customers were fine, at least. They'd all eaten, chugged down their beverages, talked, and done their usual things. But his teens had been off, too. Spinner and Dobby, his lodger looking distressed, had come back downstairs after following Tomra, who'd rushed by him without a word not long after he'd re-entered his eatery. He'd been serving 2 customers, or he would have run straight up after him, to the apartment a full 5 minutes later. The decay quirk user had allegedly slammed his fucking bedroom door in our faces. He told me to piss off. And that instantly had made him beyond concerned. What was with today? It was 17:30, the salary crowd would be upon them soon, and to top everything off, there was a car, an unmarked police one he was willing to bet, parked just up the road. A pair of very inconspicuous men sat inside it and wearing fucking aviator sunglasses, of all things. He'd scowled to himself for all of 3 seconds as he reflected on the situations all running in together before ranking what he needed to do in order and going about what he needed to do. Mimi-chan, her friends, and Sora-san were making their way out of the cat enclosure, and so a quick text to Tomoko sent. The tots were similarly trotting back to the study space, where he'd asked Spinner to entertain them with some of his cheat codes. Once done, the cats were still free to roam around in their designated space. His latest employee had skipped up to him, told him, "You can count on me, Captain! Give Tomo-chan a hug from me if he needs one, okay?" And diligently manned the till. Then, his head nodding to Dobby, a brotherly hand giving that tension-stiffened shoulder a squeeze, they both went upstairs. He had decided to keep Hitoshi out of whatever was going on for the time being. He was still fussing over the birthday boy, and the thought of seeing Spinner knee in action was something he didn't want to take him from unless it was absolutely necessary. Therefore, together, they'd walked into their apartment, passed under the archway that conjoined the 2 formerly separate living spaces, and he, his tallest teen hanging back slightly, his form clearly upset, had knocked on the door and said, "Hi, is everything all right?" He'd now been stood there for 3 minutes. Tomra had yet to answer. Can I come in?" he edged. "I'm going to open the door, okay?" "Don't!" Well, that wasn't good. "Tomra, I... Coming out," the other said. "Stand away from the door, My gloves are... shit." Feeling his brows raise, Shouta took a step or 2 back before looking to Dobby, his words quiet. "Can you get a big first aid kit from the kitchenette? It's under the sink. There are some spare gloves in there." Nodding, the other was moving swiftly while he observed the door. As the silver handle lowered, he sucked in and released a breath, his smile warm. "Hey," he said. "Are you—" "I'm leaving," the teen stated bluntly, his tear-reddened eyes harsh. There was a satchel in his hand, the same satchel he'd carried some personal effects here for his room a few weeks ago. "Leaving?" He blinked. You're not a prisoner here, of course, but isn't this all a little sudden?" he asked, his worry ramping up a notch. "I mean, can't we just stop a second and talk about this? Why have you packed a bag?" "Oh, shit!" The Dobby that he'd first met back in May, his tone biting, his words blunt, had taken center stage, hadn't he? Damn! Slowly backing a little further away, his gaze moving from the scowling flame quirk user to the gritted teeth of the decay quirk user, Shouta watched the shorter teen's resolve flicker for a second before those cracked lips. His skin was reacting to his agitated state, wasn't it? Mirrored the scarred man's scowl. "Because I'm fucking leaving, you moron! It's over, I'm going, that's it!" He sneered. So get the fuck out of my way before I make you. The fuck did you just say? Whoa. Time out. He called, his body now moving to stand between them, his own power ready to activate if he needed it. Take a breath, both of you, he said, his tone brokering the argument. We can talk this out. That's where you're wrong, Aizawa. The crimson-eyed boy snarled, his gloveless hands trembling as he raised one at him. There's no reasoning with a monster like me, he spat. Now get the fuck out of my way! Don't follow me! And Tobra, he said, his voice unwavering. You're not a monster, he stated firmly. You're our friend. No, you're more than that. You're our family, kid. We love you. No! The gray-haired teenager howled. You can't... You don't know me! You don't know who I am or what I've done! Just think we care? Dobby cut in, his hands balling into fists, his shoulders shaking and alight with flames. What about me, huh? Look at me! Are I scary? Huh? Shit, he needed to calm them down, and sadly he didn't have any food to shove at them, and so with a sigh he ignited his quirk and watched as both of them bowed before staring at him, the fierceness of their expressions thankfully subsiding. Neither of you are monsters, he said, his eyes narrowing when the slighter of the two made to open his mouth. You're my precious people, and I will not tolerate you talking about yourselves that way, he informed him bluntly. I'm in the habit of saying things that I don't mean. Watching as the other shuddered and shook his head, he allowed himself to blink, the tension which had been building slowly leaching away at the quiet of their living space. Now, as I've said, he breathed, you're free to leave, Tomra, but I'd much rather you stay and talk to us, he urged. Please. At the other's flinch and nod, the satchel's handles disintegrated, the bag falling to the floor with a muted thunk. My uncle is taking me somewhere. We're leaving in his private jet in 3 days' time, the youngest of the three finally said. I won't be coming back. Not for a very long time. He furthered his words, causing Dobby to stiffen and him to blink. I see, he heard himself say. But have you told him that you have a place here? I can't support you, you know. He wouldn't need to send any yen if you wanted to stay here. I can't, the shorter boy whimpered, his anger dissolving into tears, his fragile shoulders shaking as he sniffed. You don't understand, and I can't tell you, or you'd hate me, and I'd rather die than have you hate me. Moving without thinking, he just about managed to stop himself when the other recoiled with a desperate sob. Don't! Right. I'm sorry. He apologized, his hands raising even as Dobby, like a caged animal, started to pace, his hands clenching and unclenching. But please, no. We could never hate you, okay? I wish I could believe that. Then tell us, the turquoise-eyed male bit out. Trust us. God, Tomer, you can't just leave us, not like this, please. Please, just, he begged, his tone pleading. How he longed to comfort them both. What the hell had happened? Everything had been going so well. God fucking damn it! If he ever met the boy's uncle, he'd uppercut him in the next week. Fine, you want to know? You want to hate me? Okay. Struggling not to say anything, his posture loose, his feet ready to move, his quirk on standby, Shouta expelled a sigh and listened, his face decidedly neutral. I got my quirk late, you know, the other began, his body curling in on itself, his head bowed, those wavy bangs shading his eyes. I had always wanted to be a hero, and so when I was 8 on a day when I met my uncle for the first time, I finally had one, and I was so happy. He chuckled through a sob. But my father, he hated heroes, so me and my big sister, we play in secret, and as my quirk developed, my black hair turned gray, and my skin cracked, and soon I was scared to touch anything. He breathed. My father was drunk a lot and violent besides, he continued. My mom and her family, they had to move into our house to keep an eye on him and me. I was always breaking things without meaning to, and they started whispering about me, and it got scared of me, and so I just played hero by myself most days. He sniffed. They pulled me out of school because I was too dangerous, and my grandparents were embarrassed, and my mom was worried, and my sister's friends stopped coming to the house, so she'd get mad at me, and One day my father was really tanked up. He tried to laugh. That poor kid. And he caught me playing hero by myself, and I wasn't hurting anyone. I was just playing, and he attacked me, hurt me, tugged my hair out, and my mom, she tried to stop him, and suddenly everyone was there grabbing at me and pushing and yelling and screaming, and then he cried, his body collapsing to his knees. They were gone. I'd killed them all, and I couldn't bring them back. Dear God. Tomra. He breathed, and his heart breaking further. He watched as the teen recoiled, obviously expecting to be physically hurt. Tomra, I'm so sorry. At his words, the other dared to look at him, his own legs bending to kneel at his level, while Dabi doing the same. What? That must have been terrifying for you, he reasoned, his own eyes tearing. Tomra, you were a child, only 8 years old, and in an awful situation with a quirk that no one had helped you to manage, he explained. What happened to your family was devastating, but it was an accident, he told him. A horrible, terrible accident, he furthered whilst edging closer. I mean, by God, your father was attacking you, he breathed, his head shaking. Here, come here. He called, his arms opening, his hands encircling the other's wrists to secure his hands before pulling him to his chest, the loud heart-wrenching sobs leaving his second lodger vibrating through him as Dabi wrapped around them both. Blinking back his own tears. No one should have to go through that. Such a hideous thing should have been avoided. God, why did parents feel ashamed of their children who had unusual quirks? He could have been helped. He could have been taught how to manage his power. Shouta gently rocked them all. It's going to be all right, he murmured into the trembling boy's hair. We love you. You're safe. It's going to be okay. After 10 minutes or so, all of them emotionally drained, Tomra had finally calmed down enough to put on a new set of gloves, his head still cradled under his chin as Dabi got up to snag a box of tissues and one of the pitchers of lemonade they kept for themselves in one of the kitchenette's fridges. Thank you, Sho, the youth murmured. I can't believe that you don't... Shh, he soothed. Thank you for trusting us enough to talk. This must have been eating at you and hurting you for a very, very long time, he replied gently. Now then, what are we going to do about your uncle, We can call him together if you... No. The other sighed, his shoulders sagging as he pulled away to look at him, his face determined. You, both of you, Toshi, Izu, the other kids, the pros, even All Might, you... I know what I have to do now. He breathed, his tremoring hands taking the glass his partner held out to him with a shaky nod. What do you mean? He blinked, because what did any of them have to do with the teen's uncle? An uncle whom he'd met? My uncle is a very powerful man, he said quietly. He wants me to become a successor. He's been training me to use my quirk to change the world. And the first thing he wants me to do, what he believes I'm ready, is to kill All Might, he stated, his eyes screwing shut as he swallowed thickly. He was here today. He could have killed all of you, he whispered. And now, if I don't help All Might to stop him, then we're all completely and totally fucked, he bit out. I'm sorry, I didn't think that he'd come back so soon. I didn't realize that he was having me followed. That son of a bitch! Dari seethed. I'll kill him myself, Easy, he called, his hand reaching out for the other as he made to get up, their eyes locking. I know how you feel, believe me, he grit out, his own features angry. But we've got to think smart. Your partner's right, he acknowledged. We need resources to throw at this problem.
resources, information, and most importantly, a united front.
He nodded, the flame quirk user steadily.
The best thing you can do now is hold on to each other,
he instructed whilst pulling the scarred man closer, his tense shoulders softening a little when the teens wrapped around each other tightly. You would not allow anyone to hurt them. Not while there was breath in his lungs. However, getting the word out to All Might and getting him and Tsunade over here wasn't going to be easy, especially if the cafe was being watched by Shigaraki-san, who he really, really wished he could pummel right now. That's for later. The last thing that they needed was for that man to believe Tomura had betrayed him. They had 3 days to get a plan together, get Itoshi and his team somewhere safe, and find a way to nail that fucking bastard and lock him up. The last part, he thought, could be relatively simple with his quirk involved and his youngest care center brother, with his pro-hero mentor involved too. Being able to knock his power down and knock it the fuck out when All Might's sheer strength gave them an opening, but he was getting ahead of himself, wasn't he?
Okay,
he breathed.
I'm going to go wash my face,
he murmured.
Then I'm going to go back downstairs to the cafe, and you two can either stay here or come down with me,
he said gently.
It is very important that we look like we're living through just another day, alright?
He asked before he looked to the decayed quirk user.
Does Shigaraki have a way to monitor phone calls that you know of?
Probably,
he admitted.
He'll definitely have taps on any communication running in and out of the cafe,
he furthered softly.
That's what I thought.
He nodded.
That's why Bakugo Mitsuki and I are going to have a long chat when she arrives to pick up Katsuki in 10 minutes. Well, after you tell me everything you can think of that can help us bring him down,
he added, his expression determined.
Then, in 3 days' time, that son of a bitch won't know what hit him, and he'll never be able to hurt you or any of us again, alright?
Mirai was admittedly incredibly distressed by this turn of events. A turn of events that he hadn't seen coming in the slightest.
You see, Yagi? This is why you keep your distance. This is what Nana warned you about, you big lummox.
And now here he was, stood in his private, secure office with Toshinori pacing up and down, Gran Torino throwing a fit, several police officer agents scowling into laptops, and his sidekicks already on their way to drink coffee at the Normaneko!
And since he has acquired this warp gate using prick, it'd be pointless to try and track him down. His car just disappeared as you drove after it, and fucking hell, what's to stop whoever the fuck that person is from manifesting inside that cat place and wreaking havoc, huh?
He felt awful for not returning Shota's messages. It was better to maintain radio silence until they could agree on a threat level or course of action. And he knew that guilt, fear, and worry were eating up his best friend. His best friend who would not allow him to provide any comfort.
Fine, I'm getting too old for this shit.
Sighing as the oldest pro finally ran out of steam, he adjusted his glasses and opened his mouth to ask a question when... Ma'am, please don't wait, you can't go in there!
The fuck I can't!
Blinking, the room's occupants bulking as a blonde woman with red eyes, sparking hands, and 3 security guards hanging off of her burst into the room. Mirai felt his brows rise as Toshinori turned to stare at her, his mouth agape.
Bakugo-san, you...
Can it!
She snipped, her hands shoving the struggling men off of her. We haven't got any time to waste, so shut up and listen to me. She spat his own hand, lifting to stop any further security guards getting in her way. Aizawa Shouta has given me a shit ton of vital information that you need to hear and know before you say anything. This information is straight from the horse's mouth. She snapped. That by Tomura, he's Shigaraki's heir, she stated, her words causing them all to gasp. The kid has spilled all kinds of beads about Alpha One and where he'll be in 3 days' time, she added, her smirk fierce. And she'll come up with a fucking amazing plan to nail that motherfucker's balls to the wall. So listen up and listen good.